It's Friday, Feedback Friday, the feedbackiest day of the week. It's Feedback Friday. First of all, excuse the color temperature. My key light blew, and the only bulb I had to replace it was a cool bulb. And so, yeah, I use a warm bulb to hide the pale a bit. So, yeah, I really am this pale. And my face is a bit swollen because teeth shit. It's been a week. Yeah, it's Feedback Friday, recorded on Wednesday because it's when I had the time. So there aren't that many comments on Wellness Wednesday, but there's plenty of stuff to talk about. I'm going to focus on the Steam Adult Games ban because I think that ties in nicely to what we were talking about regarding free speech this week, with a brief touch on the same old tired arguments about men's issues that I've addressed a bazillion times and people keep making them. So we're going to do a quick rebuttal on that and then get into the meat. So if you like this content, help support this channel, become a monthly patron, patreon.com/LeannaK, or buy a one-time Leanna Cares session for someone who can use it but can't afford it, coffee.com/LeannaK. So like and subscribe if you like this content. So for those doing the same old bullshit about the draft and family court in the US, I am in Canada. The US is not the world. The fact that people who think men are not protected go there instead of the fact that, like, boys in countries around the world are being held down and circumcised between the ages of 8 and 12 years old, you are not bringing forward the strongest fucking arguments there. The reason I said circumcised is, my God, no, that we need a new name for that practice, but people hide behind Islam to refuse to talk about that, even though not all branches of Islam insist that is necessary. So there's that. And that's a strong thing to talk about. But no, we keep hearing about family courts and the draft. Puppets. There has not been a draft since the 70s. Registering is an academic exercise. And the reason that women are not required to do it is the current US government thinks women are incompatible with a warrior mentality, and they are currently firing women in the military. Look at the fuck up and thank Pete Hegseth. That has nothing to do with protecting women. That has everything to do with disrespecting women and thinking women are weak. So that's a terrible argument. And whenever somebody starts saying U.S. family courts, there's no such thing. Even in Canada, there is no Canadian family court. It is province by province, state by state. Missouri just banned child marriage. You cannot say across the board the courts are against men. The court laws are written to advocate for children. Most places where I live, we have something called no-fault divorce and a shared custody baseline. There has to be a very poignant reason to not do that. Now, there's a primary custodial parent, but decisions, hence, custody, are made jointly, unless the parents really can't get along. And at that point, the judge makes a decision based on status quo, meaning who is the primary caregiver and the private decision maker before the marriage dissolved, and then what's in the best interests of the children. Courts are there to advocate for children in family courts because children cannot advocate for themselves. It's not anti-men. It's, if you don't like that, get involved in your children's lives So you create a status quo that then continues if you get divorced. When we get into criminal law, mass incarceration is a massive problem. But let's face it, it doesn't uniformly affect all men. It predominantly hits Black and Latino men. And they actually find that if you want to improve that, have more female judges. I did a video about that. Yep, sentencing disparities are paternalism, not a desire to protect women. Paternalism and a desire to protect women are not the same thing, because paternalism isn't treating women like adults. It's treating women like perpetual children. Oh, she just didn't know what she was doing. Again, that's not protecting women. That's disrespecting women. This stuff has been addressed again and again and again and again. This is not men in Africa being shipped off by the Russians to fight in Ukraine. This is not the problem of child soldiers around the world. You know, it's just systems believing women are not adults. And leaving shitty comments that don't deal with the facts doesn't change that. And it isn't going to make anything any better. You're just venting your spleen, ironically, at a woman. And ironically, I'm glad you felt safe enough to leave that comment. Now let's get into the Steam adult games ban, because this goes directly to the light's going to change, because I'm going to pull up an article. But this goes directly to my concerns about opening up games to external regulation, because the tactic that is being used here is a known one by they used to be nationalist conservative groups, things like Focus on the Family. They've now blended with certain radical feminist organizations to create basically censorship campaigns, hiding behind, for the love of God, think of the children. And what they do is they pressure credit card companies to refuse to provide, financial transaction services, doing an end run around the First Amendment. It is the same core thing of coercively doing an end run around the First Amendment. And because of this very effective tactic, Steam has banned adult games. And this is not... I don't think it's just that it sets a dangerous precedent. That, it's not a precedent. It's a problem in and of itself. This is not a slippery slope. This is a problem. Okay? And I'm going to make the case that this is just a problem. Now, Steam can't do anything about it. They can't do business without the financial providers, right? And their hands are tied here. But this is something that has to be pushed back against. Because not only, if people want their porn, fine, have their porn. I'd rather people be consuming digital video game porn than some of the dubious and non-consensual shit that sneaks onto Pornhub. Okay? First of all, people are going to porn. They are. The internet is for porn. The internet is for porn, right? Like the wisdom of Avenue Q. It is not going away. So we need to provide people stuff that isn't, like, I was going to say the freaky shit, but that's not the problem. Let your freak flag fly, man. It's the stuff that can warp people. There is this concern that excessive porn consumption, not any porn consumption, excessive porn consumption leads to a cycle of needing more and more and more extreme stimulus and an inability to actually, have intimacy. And so, something like a game that at least has a semblance of a plot, I'd rather people be consuming that than just video after video after video after video and becoming numb. Now that's personal opinion. All right. The reality is that this argument has been going on in feminist circles since the 1970s and the feminist sex wars or the feminist porn wars. Sex negative feminists believe that all porn is bad and demeaning towards women. And, pro-sex feminists like me think that if you can't handle sexual content involving women and you never think it can ever be done respectfully, then you don't respect women, because women are whole people and that includes sex. And it's not like men are not depicted sexually. My God, I finally got to the Night Manager. I didn't think it was possible for me to see too much of Tom Hiddleston. Way too much. I don't understand. It was a BBC show. I was not prepared for the amount of sex in that thing. Like, oh my God, what? Why? It's just there. I thought it was an HBO show. It was so like, what? And I mean, okay, it's older and that's what it was at the time, but it shows how pointless it becomes. And that's the thing. We have shifted from getting an extreme close-up of Emilia Clarke's boob in the pilot of Game of Thrones. Why? Why did that happen? Why? I don't understand. To just man nudity everywhere. And what's the difference? Right? There's different preferences, but why did all the female nudity go away and be replaced by man-ass? It's still just brainless sexual content that isn't. It's rough on actors shooting that shit. Those scenes are really, really grueling. They're exhausting because they're not. I mean, the guys have to fucking be like this, and the women are like look at where the pillows are positioned. You don't sleep like this, right? They do that because if you're that's a terrible angle. Nothing is natural about that shit. And there's intimacy coordinators that have made things better, but it's part of the job that most people really don't like. But you understand that it's a requirement sometimes. But again, it's not going away. And this ban on adult content, because, you're not going to be able to get the cable providers banned. You can do it with games because games are seen as shitty to women overall, thanks feminist frequency in the last decade. So the payment providers go, all right, well, we're not going to argue this. And that's really all it is. They're capitulating because they don't want the bad press. And this was exactly what I was talking about regarding don't involve government, don't expect government to solve problems, because that is only going to make that attack vector worse. And here we are with the Steam games. There's no point in being angry at Valve here. It is not Valve. Okay? It is. They can't just process their own credit cards. They need Visa, MasterCard, etc. to do it. And I can't see what? It's apparently not all adult games. It's just some adult games. Apparently it has to do with incest. And all right, why is HBO allowed to have all the games of all the thrones and but games can't have incest? Hello, Scout. That is a double standard because they can't do anything about TV. They go after what's vulnerable. And I mean, you could technically argue that Trails in the Sky has incest themes. Like, I don't know what these games are. I just... And that's the point. I don't know what they are. It's, now, people say you can't, they haven't been able to use PayPal on Steam in the last 5 days. PayPal worked for me. I bought something recently and it worked for me. But okay, here's a list of games that are being used. It requires me to sign in. Not now. But these games are not featured. They're not thrust in your face. You have to look for them. And this is one of these things where just because something is grotesque or a taboo or even a bad thing if it happened in real life, art has to be able to depict it. And this is not Steam saying, certain games are in violation. This is the credit card companies saying certain things are in violation. And it all comes down to, child abuse is an absolutely good thing to despise. But the way we are handling it is not reducing child abuse. Screaming groomer at trans people doesn't solve the fucking problem. There's also the fact that, again, Missouri just banned child marriage. So there's probably a certain attempt to cover up the real problem here. But these groups are relentless and they play the long game and they have big money backers like J.K. Rowling. And they believe in what they're doing. They believe that they are on the side of good. And they have a bit of a peacemaker mentality of, I want world peace and I don't care how many people I have to kill to get it. That kind of, lion for the Lord attitude. And there is a religious underpinning to these things. Make no mistake. And we've collectively failed to have intelligent adult decisions about quality of execution of these things as opposed to just whether it exists at all. And then, like I talked about on, was it Tuesday's video? I think so, yeah. The fact that historically there have been practices that we now see as rightfully wrong. But games set in that period in history need the right to depict them, in part so we don't forget history. We don't forget the way things used to be. And we don't forget that it's very easy for things to go back there. And we are living in a time of regression. Now, I believe it won't last, but it's not going to improve on its own people have to start working smart instead of fighting hard. These emotional explosions are not helping. Panicking and going for the misogyny over consumer protection laws aren't helping. Telling me I don't know what I'm talking about isn't helping, right? Telling me, oh, well, this, the website for a movement says this, but that's not really what we're doing. We are prepared to compromise with government. That's not helping. You have to expect people to take you at your word for what your intended outcome is. This is really not difficult, even if it may be inconvenient, because you have to practice a modicum of self-control. And let me tell you guys, most of y'all aren't going to believe me, but the game devs, I have not heard a single game dev that I know say that they think that the current trajectory of things, including Stop Killing Games, is good. Not a single one. Of course, they can't say it because, they've been told by the companies they work for not to say anything, rightly so. And they have really valid reasons for going, because they know how these fucking games work. And they know whether it's really feasible to do what the demands are. And they are demands. The languages are destroy, force, demand, make them. Steam wasn't forced to start giving refunds by the Australian government. Steam was already selling games in Australia, just in US dollars. They wanted to be able to sell in local currency. But they also found that if they offered refunds, the number of support tickets that they had to deal with went way down. And that's why they started offering refunds internationally, not because the Australian government forced them. It's just not true. And that's not me saying it's not true because I want it to be not true. It is just not true. I know how these things work. I have covered multiple waves of these things. If you don't work smart and you don't fight clean, you get unintended results. If you make a big stink and you make a lot of noise, people start looking. But you can't only have them see the good stuff. And if you keep feeling like, oh no, you don't understand it, you don't understand it, you don't understand it, you don't understand it. Well, if people don't understand your initiative, you failed as messengers. And people are, well, you should reach out to this person, and you should reach out to this person, and you should reach out. The reason I haven't, just full disclosure, is because people went behind my back and contacted, apparently they told me they did this after the fact, contacted people like Ross about me and told me shit that wasn't true, and told them shit about me based on what they said that just was not true, and started shit there. So I'm not gonna, it's not clean anymore, right? Like, and I do not see what good could come from that. Because Ross has said again and again and again, I'm probably not the right guy to do this. So what does talking to him do? And it's bigger than him at this point. You can't expect one guy to clean up the mess that thousands of people acting like shitheads are doing. If you believe in what he's doing, act accordingly, right? Nobody expects it to be perfect. We do expect it to be a reasonable amount of emotion for wonky consumer protection discussions. There is no reason to go after my looks, my weight, my age, my intelligence, any of that stuff. And if you do respect me, as people claim, then respect that I have spent hours and hours and hours and hours on this shit at this point. And what I have discovered about Stop Killing Games is you ask 12 people what Stop Killing Games is, you get 13 opinions. That's a messaging problem. That can be solved. But right now, there is a messaging problem. Meanwhile, these entities, which are highly organized, very well funded, and extremely disciplined, that I have been trying to warn y'all about, are getting these wins because their message is simple. You're harming women and you're harming kids. And the credit card companies are just like, we don't want to deal with any of this shit. It is a tactic that has worked multiple times, and they just keep hitting that button. And when you are out there calling me fat, old, ugly, stupid, crazy, and barren, you are feeding that narrative. And you can't control the trolls. You can't. But I know it's not just trolls. One of the people that demanded I look into Stop Killing Games, I go onto Twitter and there's 20 fucking tweets from this guy. Look into it. And I said to him, okay, you've got me right here. Explain to me what this is. Here's a 3-hour video. And I tried to watch it, and there were multiple contradictions in the first 20 minutes. And people assumed I didn't watch the video. So I started going online, and I went to the website, and I read verbatim from the website, and people still kept telling me I didn't know what the fuck I was talking about. And then the guy that demanded I look into it blew up on me because he didn't like what my opinion was. So it's not just trolls. It's not. And the reason I'm not discussing the points here is because I don't want to help this narrative. I don't agree that banning sex games, even games that contain incest, help create a more respectful environment for women in video games. It doesn't. Banning doesn't solve the problem. It doesn't. All it does is perpetuates the belief that women are weak little girl babies, even as adults, who don't really know what we want, have to be protected from ourselves, and are not equal. We are not human beings with, sexual desires as well. No, we are whatever we are. And if we actually have any sexual urges at all, we're dirty sluts that just, no, you're not a real woman. Now you don't deserve protection anymore because you're not the right kind of woman. You're not the angelic pseudo being who has no urges of their own, no wants, no desires. You just exist to be waifu and be pretty and soothe. That's where we keep going in gaming, unless we get weird-ass torture porn like The Last of Us 2, where there's completely pointless sex in that. I still don't understand what the fuck that was about. Like, why do we need panty shots of barely legal girls? Like, what, Ellie and Dina are maybe 19? You know, like, why do we need that? You can show they were intimate without a close-up of Dina's crotch. We don't need to see Abby's boobs. We don't need to see a dude taking her from behind. People had to mocap that shit. And you're not allowed to talk about that. Oh no, because then you're anti-women. It's control levers all the way down. It's not helping. We need to completely rethink what we talk about regarding this, because all discussions of women, all discussions of men in gaming must include the fact that women are whole people. Women are different from each other. One woman cannot speak for all women. Hiring one woman writer on your game does not mean you're representing all of womanhood. It's just not possible. And it must involve the idea that women like sex too. Depictions of sex, even women who are naked and sometimes one person's sexually objectified is another person's sexually worshipped. And we need to be able to discuss this. And if we have to let in some clearly labeled incest games where giant fucking warnings pop up about what these games are, I don't like it, I'll do it because of the greater principle at play here. Because this idea that it's protecting women and children, you notice it lumps women and children together because women are treated as extended children? And the fact that people still think that I am protected just because I don't have a penis after all the shit I have taken for 10 fucking years now and more. God, I going back to fucking BioShock and early vanilla. Wow. I was getting ripped on. I haven't gone a year without a death threat since 2012. Who's fucking protected here? And this is completely legal speech, by the way, because it's not a credible threat. And I agree, they're not credible threats. People just say shit. But every man that tells me that I'm protected is telling me my business. They're telling me that I don't know what my reality is. They have to tell me, and I'm sorry, you are part of the problem. If you can't even accept that men and women are left unprotected by society in different ways, but everybody gets it somehow, unless you're rich and powerful and can hire private security and bribe judges and all that shit, well, you're part of the problem. Because you're not living in reality, you're living in your own grievance. And this is not gonna get better until we collectively do better. You have to cut the crap. You can't wait for someone to go first. You can't wait for somebody to do it for you. That is lazy, and that is not living in reality. The person you're screaming at on the internet did not cause your pain. The idea of whether you can turn a game off is not a life or death situation. It doesn't warrant this vitriol. It doesn't warrant telling people they don't know what they're talking about. You've got them right there. Don't lead with an insult. Provide what you understand. It is way more effective. I know about effective advocacy. I've been doing it since the 1990s. I've made every single one of these mistakes myself. Stop telling me I don't know and start really listening. Because when someone is saying, look, guys, this is going to happen, and wham, it happens. That's a person who knows what they're talking about. And this exact tactic, this going after the credit card companies, that's what I was talking about. I was vague about it because I didn't want to give them any fucking ideas. Little did I know it was already happening. This happened 5 days ago. I started talking about this 2 weeks ago. Maybe people who get it right actually do know what they're talking about. And instead of telling them they don't, how about listening and changing your tactics? Because, gee, maybe I'm making this video because I want these things to be successful in some way. I want a good result. The fact that that didn't cross people's minds just shows how emotional this thing is. And on its surface, it doesn't warrant that emotion. So everybody has to sit with themselves and wonder what this is really about. Because would I give a shit about the content of The Last of Us 2 if I didn't see those attitudes reflected in, actual real life, especially left-wing men, that, it's fine to fetishize women as long as they're not traditionally attractive? No, that happens all the time. Like, trust me, I get a bunch of, well, you're not conventionally attractive, but I'd hit that. It's like, oh, fuck off. Fuck off. Either you find something attractive or you don't. I don't go, oh, Solus isn't that fucking little elf dude is hot. Like, I don't give a shit. And that whole, well, you're not, but if you're good, lady, who nobody wants, so I'm, it's like, oh, fucking spare me, you misogynist fuckwad. I'm not calling you, viewer, a misogynist fuckwad. I'm calling these so-called enlightened left-wing men who pull that shit. We see you coming, assholes. And that's a terrible choice of words. I'm going to stop there. Help support this channel. Become a monthly patron, patreon.com/Leanna K. Or buy a one-time Leanna Care session for someone who can use it but can't afford it, coffee.com/Leanna K. Like and subscribe if you like this content, and have a great weekend.